Hello, my name is Ana Victoria Felix, and my presentation will be on APA Group, and my countries are Mexico and Russia. I will be talking about the implications of several factors within corporate governance and the effects of corporate governance after the global financial crisis in these two countries. A little bit about APA. They're an Australian energy infrastructure large business in Australia, and they own and operate over $25 billion in assets, as can be seen in the picture. Their assets vary from pipelines to storage facilities for their gas services, as they provide several services such as gas transportation and storage, gas distribution, renewable energy generation, and electricity transmission. All of these through either farm solar panels or wind panels. So a little bit about corporate governance. According to ASIC, the corporate governance is a system of rules, practices, and processes by which a company is directed and controlled. And APA does have a corporate governance framework, which is not limited to, but it includes these three in regards to shareholder rights. It mentions that they have advisory vote on remuneration plans for the executive members. The second one is that they are able to approve or reject any proposed increase of non-executive director fees. And last but not least, they have the power to remove any directors should they hold a meeting and vote accordingly. So now the board of directors, it has varied from 2019 to 2023, from 7 members to 8, and then back to 7. Their gender ratio, as can be seen in the graph, it has slowly increased, which is good for gender equality, of course. In 2019, there were only 2 women to 5 men. However, now in 2023, there's 3 women for 4 men. The executive ratio throughout the entire 5 years analyzed, the executives were only 1 member, which was the CEO, and the non-executive were all the rest of the independent directors. For more of a visual aid, this is an overview of the directors and their faces. We can see that they stayed quite consistent and the same throughout the years, with the only maximum change being the CEO from Robert Wheels to Adam Watson in 2023, and a few members either entering or leaving the board of directors, such as Rhoda, who joined in 2020, or Stephen, who left in 2023. So what are the implications of the board staying very similar throughout the 5 years? For one, they may be potential conflict of interest because the relationships are gonna get closer throughout the years. There may be potential biases when organizing any plans or strategies and when voting accordingly. Another one is a lack of succession planning. Because the same candidates have been in the board of directors for 5 years at least, there may be a lack of qualified candidates if board turnover increases eventually. However, on a positive note, the board does have a high level of expertise and involvement within the firm. To give you an example, Michael Fraser, the independent chairman, and he has over 35 years of experience in the energy and infrastructure sectors. In addition, throughout these 5 years, like I mentioned, there was a change in CEO where Watson was appointed in December of 2022, having been previously the group CFO since November 2020. And Wheels, Robert, he was appointed in 2019. And although Wheels counted with over 25 years of experience, Watson counts with the extensive knowledge in the industrial and manufacturing sectors and has experience in technological, finance, taxation, security, risks, and procurement areas, to name a few. So now several directors are also members of various committees and head of those committees, including safety and risk management, sustainability, remuneration, and audit and finance. Now their involvement in these committees will enable them to strategize more effectively to meet the shareholders and stakeholders' objectives while following the firm and government policies. Another factor is the demographical diversity and the implementation of a younger generation, such as the new CEO, might provide innovation and increased competitive positioning for APA. It will also generate a higher confidence, trust, and engagement between the board and within the stakeholder relationship, which can provide a greater investor relationship So now to the executive remuneration for APA Group. The APA's reports are quite consistent throughout the 5 years as they keep increasing constantly. Those with asterisks, like Adam Watson, Julian Pegg, or Darren Rogers, they're all paid remuneration on a part-term year because either they left the firm early or they joined later on in the financial year. We can see that the CEO's report, the remuneration report, it has had a slight decrease and then slowly increasing again. However, we can see the major difference, 53.5% decrease from Michael Cormack's remuneration 2019 to Watson's remuneration 2023. This may be because of the 35 years of experience that Michael used to have, whereas Adam is fairly new to this CEO position and responsibilities as well. To give you more of an insight, 2023, only 2 executive members are getting paid remuneration, which include Watson and Darren. These 2 positions, as seen here, it's the CEO and the general executive for the strategy and commercial areas. For the CEO, for Watson, he's getting a fixed paid of 29.4%, whereas the maximum short-term incentive consisting of cash and deferred equity are also delivered as restricted securities is 26.5%, whereas the long-term incentives, including equity release and legacy cash for achieving predetermined goals, is 44.1%, a much greater percentage. So we can also see that Watson's total 2023 remuneration of $2.4 million is slightly less than the industry average of 2.9. However, this can only push Watson to increase his responsibilities and experience, and also to meet predetermined goals in order to increase his remuneration as the years go by. However, it is an incentive to act in the best interest of shareholders because, as we can see in the graph, even though the CEO's remuneration did decrease across the years, we can see in 2019 from 5 million to 2020 from 2.5 million. This resulted in because of the change in CEO. However, from 2020 to 2022, with the same CEO existing, Robert Wheels, we can see a slight increase, and then we can see a slight decrease again from 2022 to 2023, which is when Watson was appointed. So it can only be implied that as the years progress and the Watson's responsibilities and expertise increase, so will his remuneration, as it did for Michael and for Robert in the previous years. And just a little fun fact that I thought was interesting to see was that there was a drop in profit from 2020 to 2021, mostly due to the pandemic. But it went from $309 million to $1 million in profit after tax. However, there was an increase of 11.41% in remuneration for the executives, which may lead to potential shareholder dissatisfaction, employee demoralization, and doubtful accountability in any case that employees were laid off, or their payments were being frozen, or even their shareholders were not getting enough dividends. However, the executives getting a higher remuneration, despite this drop in profit, may be a little bit, it may demotivate the shareholders. Now on to the external auditor. So throughout the 5 years that were analyzed in the annual reports, APA did stay with the exact same external auditor, which was Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu, one of the Japanese brands for Deloitte, one of the big 4 auditing and accounting firms. So I went beyond the 2019 report, and I went all the way back to 2016, and I found out that even then they have maintained the exact same external auditor, which, because they are a big 4, they may provide high quality reports, which is really good for the firm, for APA. However, staying with the exact same external auditor may limit the perspective and methodologies being used in the auditor processings, and it may also arise questioning the auditor's dependence and objectivity, because the relationship does grow stronger within the years. A lack of innovative processes and even biases may arise or be developed or exist which may lead to accountability of independence and objectivity. Now, onto the country's corporate governance. Once again, my countries were Mexico and Russia. I'm going to talk a little bit about Russia first, where following the global financial crisis of 2008, Russia's GDP fell for 7.8%. And as a result, many firms started exiting the market. However, it was found by Iwasaki's research that firms whose governing bodies were independent from top management were able to reduce this exit risk through risk management, effective supervision, and adaptability of strategies applied. Now, Russia has a mixed economy of free markets and command economy. Hence, the companies must take this into consideration when establishing their corporate governance strategies and understand that some stricter reporting requirements, compliance, and disclosure obligations may be necessary since the government is much more involved in all the company processes. However, on the brighter side, mixed economies may often focus on balancing the interests of stakeholders, which may lead to more innovative and inclusive decisions acting on their best interests. Now, after the global financial crisis, Russian banks were also encouraged to improve their corporate governance practices. And although this didn't yield higher operating performance during the crisis, it did improve afterwards. This was from a research by Orizela in 2016. So we can see in this study that the operating performance did increase after a few years. Another effort to promote corporate governance is the development of ratings and assessment tools, such as the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs and the Russian Institute of Directors. And these both serve as benchmarks for government policies, for corporate governance policies, which aid or help companies in evaluating the company's governance practice, and it enables the directors and the stakeholders to provide a benchmark to see where they want to be in regards to corporate governance versus where they are, which allows them to not be affected. Which allows them to not be affected by any volatile change in the market or any potential upcoming crisis. Now, for Mexico, unlike Russia, Mexico has a fully free market economy where the price is fully determined by the free price system. This may arise a little bit of problems for poorly governed companies, as they may be vulnerable to adverse market reactions. However, this may encourage greater innovation in processes in order to drive competition and increase the firm's value. Now, after the global financial crisis, a study by APEC argued that a firm's value should not be solely about the share price, but also about the efforts to pursue objectives within the firm. And Mexico is an example of this, where the firms were able to include a formal approach to internal committees and expand their quantity of internal committees, such as compensation, risk management, internal ruling, that way increasing the value of their firms in a non-financial sector. Another response to the global financial crisis in 2014 was that the Mexican Stock Exchange enforced several existing regulatory forms, including corporate governance codes and listing requirements to access capital markets, which increased transparency and promoted investor protection. So now, to list a few examples, it is stated that at least 25% of the board members must be independent. Corporate committees must be led by independent directors, and there should be an increase in minority shareholders' ability to promote directors. Most often, Mexican companies don't offer any remuneration or compensation plans, which may demotivate these executives from acting in the best interest of shareholders. And just a fun fact that even though the profits during the global financial crisis in Mexico, the profits did decline, CEOs did not share these losses, which resulted in a higher business instability throughout the crisis and greater lack of confidence in the investor and the shareholders' point of view. Yeah, these are my sources, and thank you so much for listening.